Welcome to the Illegal Angle. I'm Angel Mom Marianne Mendoza. Wanted to give you a quick update on my recent trip down to Yuma, Arizona. I met with Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs. He brought 11 other members of Congress into the area of Yuma, Arizona to be able to see exactly what was going on with the stopping of the building of the wall by Biden and what effect it's having not only in the community of Yuma, but also Arizona and the rest of our country. So we did a night tour on Thursday night. We actually met up with some National Guardsmen who were down there. They had night vision goggles. They were stationed in an area where the wall ends and it goes on to an Indian reservation there in southern Arizona. And so the fencing that's on the Indian reservation is Normandy fencing. So it's pretty active at night with people coming across that area. The Normandy fencing was put up mainly to keep the people from the other side of the border from stealing tractors and farm equipment, because that was happening a lot. And so the Indians were okay with the Normandy fencing being put up. They are still negotiating with them about possibly getting some other type of border security put there on the Indian reservation. But, you know, there's bags of garbage there and whatnot. And what's happening now is, and we found the paperwork that showed us exactly, you know, what we were being told. People from Brazil, people from all over the world, they get a round trip ticket into Mexico. They can't buy a one-way ticket into Mexico. It's got to be a round trip. So they act like they're coming on vacation. A lot of them are going to Cancun, and then they head immediately to the border. So what is discarded there around this point of entry where they come in, where the big wall stops, are the round-trip ticket receipts, their travel papers from Brazil. They discard those because if Border Patrol picks up somebody from Brazil, they will be deported right back to Brazil. So they get rid of all their paperwork showing that that's their country of origin. And of course, people who are not from Central America or Mexico, they get rid of all their paperwork also. It's just amazing the ways that the cartel and these illegals find to bypass laws and things that are put in place to protect countries. So we ended up that night visiting several different areas, seeing a lot of Border Patrol action at the time, and we went back out on Friday morning and kind of went to some of the same areas that we had been the night before. However, we did visit an area where Baja California, and Arizona meet. So it's kind of like a 90-degree angle. And so the wall that was being constructed there, it's in sections right now. Like there may be 200 yards of the wall built and a 50-yard opening and 100 yards of the wall built. So they were finishing that up when the Biden administration stopped that on January 20th. And all of this, you know, taxpayer-funded money went to all of these projects, and these steel ballards are laying in piles everywhere around this wall project. And we were told by the Yuma County Supervisor that they are now showing up at steel scrapyards. And so people are stealing them in the middle of the night and taking them and making money off of the wall sections that Biden has just left rotting in the desert, is basically what's going on. The most disheartening part of it all was, as we ended the tour on Friday, we got to an area where, traveling along the border wall, the county supervisor stopped. There was, you know, 4 poles and a metal roof, and he said this is what they call bus stations. And he said when people come over the border, they come to these bus stations, so they're out of the sun. It was 101 degrees when we were down there on Friday. They get out of the sun, get out of the heat, and they just sit here and wait for Border Patrol to come and pick them up and process them. I mean, I don't know how much more easy we can make it for them, folks. You know, these open borders and everybody gets to stay. I don't know. It's just very disturbing to me. And as we got to the end of our tour, we noticed that there was 4 or 5 Border Patrol trucks surrounding one of these bus stops. And so we went in for a closer look, and the county supervisor went over and talked to Border Patrol and found out that this group of people they were processing were from Russia, from Cuba, and from Armenia. So they weren't from Central America, or they weren't from Mexico. These are people from on a whole nother continent, across the ocean. You know, how are they getting here? How do they have the money to get here? they will end up being, if the cartel help them get across our borders, they are going to be indentured servants to the cartel for God knows how long. This is a sad reality of what the Joe Biden administration has done. I heard one of the congressmen saying when we were standing there, and he was doing a FaceTime live feed on his account, and he was saying, Biden stopped the wall and he broke the law. And folks, that couldn't be a more truthful, right on the money statement, because Biden did not have the authority to stop these border wall construction projects from happening at all. This money was appropriated, it was approved by Congress, and the president does not have the authority to stop appropriated money from going to these types of projects and securing our borders. And it's just amazing that so many of these Congress people that were along were really kind of shocked at what's going on. And I think America would be shocked if they really would go down and have the opportunity to take a trip and see what's happening to these communities, see what's happening to the Border Patrol agents, how overwhelmed they are. It's really a sad state of affairs. The other thing about, and I talked about this in my previous video when I was down in Naco, Arizona, the erosion problem that Biden administration is talking about is really being caused by Biden, because they're stopping all construction and there's 6-foot trenches dug. And when the monsoon rains here in Arizona come, and they do come to the Yuma area too, the erosion is going to happen, but not because of the disarray that President Trump left this country in. It's because of the stroke of the pen by the Biden administration, and that is what's going to be causing the erosion problems. Another conversation I had with these congressional members Thursday night when we were having dinner, I was letting them know, over 63,000 Americans have been killed by illegal aliens since 9/11 here in our country. More innocent Americans are killed every year, annually, than were killed on 9/11. So every year, and that number keeps growing, every year that amount of people, more than what was killed in 9/11, are killed every year by illegal criminals. And nobody seems to want to touch this topic and have a conversation about it. They just want to call me and anybody else who gives you these figures. They want to call us liars and fact check us, and because they want to just poo-poo the fact that innocent Americans are being killed by illegal criminals in our country. More Americans have been killed on our home soil by illegal criminals than Americans were killed in the Vietnam War in Vietnam. Let that sink in. I mean, this is a war going on in our own country, and we're being killed. My son is one of them, being killed on our homeland, in our homeland, by illegal criminals that the Biden administration is supporting, uplifting, encouraging. And the amount of money, I mean, it's like $72,000 is being spent on each illegal. I watched a video of a hotel, I believe it was in California, that illegals are being stayed at, and they showed pictures down in a conference room on the lower level where they have it all set up with boxes of clothing for these people. Some of it's donated by stores, so it's brand new clothing, and they have them separated in boxes, children's size 0 to 3, women's sizes, men's sizes. They get all their toiletries handed to them. They get 3 meals a day. And these kinds of places are popping up all over the country because the government gave these NGOs, one in particular, Family Endeavors, an $86 million contract to get these hotels for 6 months and put these people in them. There are 2 hotels in the Phoenix area that I'm aware of and that I visited, and 232 is the amount of people that they say can stay in these rooms. So I don't know if it's 232 rooms or I'm sure that's probably it, 232 rooms, so more people are actually there. But I figured it up using the figure 232. For 6 months, if these people are coming in one night, leaving the next day, because we've got videos of vans picking them up at the hotel and following the vans, and they're going to the airport and dropping these people off, again on taxpayer money with no photo ID and no COVID test, and they're getting on American flights to just be taken to wherever they choose to be taken. But all of this is being taxpayer funded. But if you take those rooms And if they're being switched out every single day and new people are coming in, we ultimately could be seeing 58,000 illegals coming through those 2 hotels in Phoenix in a 6-month period. Now multiply that by the number of hotels that this $86 million is funding across our country. This is where you have to start thinking bigger than just these headline stories that you see. You really have to dig into what's going on. I know there is a hotel in Benson that they're doing it. Another disturbing thing that I caught wind of from a very reliable source is the 5,000 beds that are available at Fort Bliss. A gentleman who lives in the area, his sister went to work on the cleaning crew to go in there and clean up. You know, these people get to live there and they have maids coming in and cleaning up after them. And the first day that she was there, she was working and all these men were screaming and yelling at her, and she turned around and one had dropped his drawers and was pleasuring himself, and they were all screaming and yelling at her. And she noticed that the majority of them had MS-13 gang tattoos. And so these are the type of men, these disgusting pigs that are staying on our military base. And she quit. She said, it's not worth it. It's not worth the job and the money they're paying me to come and be treated like this by these pigs. So I tried over the summer to stop at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana last summer to see and to show Frank the home that I grew up in. We were there stationed for 3 years, I believe. And even though my dad was retired Air Force, my son is current active military, and I have had Secret Service background checks done numerous times to go into the White House. I've had background checks by the Mesa Police Department because I worked for them in a volunteer program. I was not allowed to go through the front gates of that base unless I had an active military person with me vouching for me. But we've got MS-13 gang members at Fort Bliss, and I'm sure at a lot of the other military bases also. But let me ask you this. If there's 5,000 beds at Fort Bliss put up quickly, then why haven't those 5,000 beds been available for homeless veterans or American families in need? The veterans should surely be allowed on base and be housed and be given 3 square meals a day and toiletries and clothing and being taken care of the way they deserve to be taken care of. I'm sick and tired of this country and the way that we've taken huge steps backwards since January 20th, and we are catering to these people. The other thing is the unemployment. You know, there's so many Americans who don't want to go to work because they're getting too much unemployment, and it's worth more to stay home than it is to go to work. Well, let me tell you what's going to be happening to you while you sit at home enjoying that extra unemployment. That's going to be coming to a stop real quick. You know, there's already rumblings, and it should be that you are actively out looking for work. And if you've got a job waiting for you because they're hiring people back because they had to lay them off from the pandemic, you should be back to work. You shouldn't be so short-sighted that you don't realize, guess who those jobs are going to be going to? All of these illegals flooding our country. And when you're ready to go back to work because your unemployment's been cut off or cut in half, your jobs are not going to be available for you. The Biden administration is giving these illegals a foot up to come in and start slowly taking over our country, taking over our jobs, and leaving Americans dependent on the government. This is what they want. There's many, many facets and layers to all of this, and we really need to start paying attention to what evil and what ulterior motives and the agenda that the liberals have for our country. Our country is not based on taking care of people who break our laws. Our country is not based on taking care and rewarding people for breaking into our country and rewarding them with citizenship and amnesty and free everything. In closing, I just want to tell you a story. Kathy Inman is an angel mom who lives in Georgia. And 22 years ago, she was in a horrific accident that killed her only child, her only son, Dustin. She and her husband, Billy, were left in a coma. They missed their son's funeral. And she has been in a wheelchair for 22 years. And 2 years ago, her husband, her sole caretaker, died of a heart attack from the stress of working and taking care of her and trying to get enough money, working in order to have money for somebody to come and be with her during the day when he was working. The state of Georgia wasn't going to help them. The federal government didn't help them. And now Billy's died, and the cost is astronomical, almost $10,000 a month for her to have 24/7 care. And so now what's happening? she's going to have to sell her house, and her family's going to have to put her in a nursing home. You know, we went there 2 years ago and remodeled that house for her. We had generous donators who gave us $6,000 to go and remodel her home and make it handicapped accessible for her. And it happened shortly after Billy died. And she's going to have to sell that house and go into a nursing home. An American taxpayer who worked up until 22 years ago has been in a wheelchair ever since. And the state of Georgia and the federal government will not help this woman whatsoever. It is very hard for me to talk to her and to know what's going on to her. The time that I spent with her, we were there with her for 3 or 4 months while we remodeled her home. To know this woman the way that I know her, and know that she's getting the shaft, and people who are crossing our borders are getting every bit of help that this woman deserves to have. And every other needy, homeless American deserves to have the help, not these illegal criminals invading our country. That's my update for this week. I'm going to be meeting with Sheriff Lamb from Pinal County next week, and I'm going to do an interview in his office, and then he's going to take me out into the field and show me some areas of where they've got some terrible drug trafficking happening in Pinal County, Arizona. This is where most of the drug trafficking happens, is through our state, and they're moving further and further into our borders. The cartel is, and taking over. So that should be an interesting information, and I'll have tons of things to share with you next week. But thank you for tuning in. Please go to angelfamilies.org and donate and help me stay on the road and bring this vital information to you so that you can stay informed. Thank you.